Now, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar has said that he is very dissatisfied. Work has not begun to analyse over 3,000 smear tests in relation to the cervical check scandal. His comments come after it emerged that the number of cervical cancer patients whose cases were missed has risen to 221. Now, an independent review of previous tests has yet to begin. Joining me with that story and others making news this morning are Kevin Doyle, Group Political Editor with the Irish Independent, and Ellen Gunning, Director of the Irish Academy of Public Relations. Now, Ellen, we'll start with the cervical check story, which, we were all shocked, we were all appalled by the scandal in the first place and the scale of it. And I think everybody realised, right, enough is enough. This has got to be sorted, it's got to be tackled, it's got to be done very quickly. And I think there was a belief that because it was so serious and it was so appalling, that would happen.
Something would happen, yeah.
And that belief has evaporated very quickly. I mean, what emerged yesterday at the Oireachtas Committee was, hang on a second, we were supposed to have these 3,000 tests done already. You haven't even started. Gabriel Scally turning around saying they're dragging their heels and it's almost like a concerted campaign. The Taoiseach saying this is not acceptable. But if it's not acceptable and they've been told by the Minister and they've been told by the Taoiseach, why isn't it happening?
There are two people I'm really annoyed about. One is the Minister and one is the Taoiseach, right? I don't understand why. The Public Accounts Committee is doing a fine job in investigating. Why are we finding out about this from a Public Accounts Committee? Why hasn't the Minister stood up in the Dáil and said, by the way, no progress has been made? This is an update for people. You're right, you nailed it. People really believed that there was so much shock.
This time,
something
we'd get
really
it right.
would happen, and it really would happen fast. And nothing is happening fast. The 3,000 smear tests that were to be retested, not one of them has been redone. Not one. And the Taoiseach said that he was very dissatisfied. Now, I'm very dissatisfied if you don't give me cream with my apple pie. But I'm not very dissatisfied about this situation. I'm furious that nothing has happened. This was meant to be done and dusted by the end of May. We're now into July and the Taoiseach is saying he now understands that it will take a while longer. I'm sorry, he's the boss. Dissatisfied doesn't hack it. Somebody telling him it will take longer doesn't hack it. Somebody needs to actually say this needs to be done and it needs to be done now. They had public confidence in their hand and I think they're just letting it fritter away.
Kevin, we have a state body ordered by the government to cooperate, and they're not. How is this possible?
Because it happens every time, Mark, is
but
the
who's
honest
in charge?
answer.
Who is in charge then, so?
But this is the problem. They've created these silos whereby this is the old thing where the Department of Health gets to blame the HSE for everything and the HSE gets to blame the Department of Health for everything, and in the end nobody is really held responsible. So you have an interim head of the HSE who appeared before the PAC yesterday talking about all sorts of things of when Dr. Scally's report comes back, we'll look at holding individuals responsible for what has happened and all of this. And we've seen all the court cases that weren't supposed to happen and have still ended up down the courts. And the problem is that the HSE is a law unto itself. It's as simple as that. And for all the talk about disbanding it and Sláinte Care coming up with a new model for a health system in Ireland, we just can't get it right. We're spending more on health than almost every country in the world per head of population. We have a reasonably young population and we still can't get it right.
This culture that they've been accused of, and anybody who's ever had to deal with the HSE legally, the deny, delay, defend culture, which was acceptable no longer and was going to be eradicated. In actual fact, it looks like it's gotten even worse. They go into the committee and they say one thing. The women who are affected are telling the committee the polar opposite. The delaying tactics that they're using with Scally are disgraceful. They've actually slowed it down. It looks like it's a concerted campaign. It's a tactic, and as you said, we've now got what,
we were supposed to have
221 cases pending.
Dr. Scally's report was only ever supposed to be a scoping exercise. It wasn't supposed to give us the bells and whistles report of who was to blame for this. It was supposed to basically set us up for the full inquiry. So that was more or less supposed to be done by now, and we'd be looking at the full inquiry. And sure, he hasn't started the ball rolling at all. So when is the full inquiry going to be done? Years. Years is what you're looking at there. And the best example of like the HSE as being the rule unto itself, it's already way overspending its budgets this year. It got a big increase in its budget, goes and spends, and nobody's worried. They're not going, how are we going to pay the bills at the end of the year? Are we going to have to cut services? Because they know the government will bail them out, and that's just how it works.
You mean we will bail them out and stump up? Right, moving to Ryanair. Ryanair crews in Spain, Portugal, Italy and Belgium are going to strike. Now, Ryanair's union troubles are, the minute they were going to engage with the unions, it was going to be difficult, Ellen. They knew that. But it now looks like 2018 is actually going to be a very difficult year, kind of an annus horribilis for them, because this is only the first of a series of sort of guerrilla skirmishes and tactics, and of course, if it's difficult for Ryanair, it's going to be difficult for thousands, hundreds of thousands of passengers, i.e. you and I.
And they are the customers that ultimately Ryanair needs to keep. What really comes across from this dispute is that there's a huge lack of respect and belief, and there's really, really bad internal communications, really bad internal relations. If you look at
this is a company who doesn't want to deal with unions, and more importantly, now that they have to, doesn't know how to deal with them.
Well, they have said, we will deal with the unions and they will come into our headquarters and we will talk to them, which actually seems reasonable until you listen to the other side and they say, but we don't know who we're going in to meet, what we're going in to face. We're basically afraid of being ambushed. We will not meet them in headquarters. We want to meet them somewhere else. The level of distrust is huge. That Ryanair doesn't know how to deal with unions. I would have thought the first thing they would do, having agreed to a unionised workforce, is bring in somebody who knows how to negotiate with unions, because the unions know how to do it. They've been doing it for years. Ryanair doesn't. I don't understand that they haven't actually brought somebody in at this stage. This has a massive implication for their share price, it has massive implication for their customers, and it has massive implications for their staff. They can't run without them. Why are they not bringing somebody in who can find a way for them to talk, just to talk to each other face to face? Because that would solve a lot of the problems.
I don't know that Michael O'Leary likes anybody telling him what to do and how to do it.
No, and it's curious. Some of the papers again today have the old features on, has Michael O'Leary's day passed? Is he the man for Ryanair anymore? And I suspect he probably will be the man for Ryanair for some time. This was inevitable, I think. The moment that they opened up the collective bargaining, that they opened it up to unions, this was, I mean, if you look at the list of demands that the cabin crew and the captains and the pilots are looking for, you know,
they're not unreasonable. They're kind of standard practice.
On paper, they seem pretty reasonable. They want recognition of certain employment laws. They want to have to stop paying for their food and water on flights. They want to not to have to pay for their uniforms. You know, it's not outlandish stuff. So you would think, but as Ellen says, the fact that they can't even agree on where to meet suggests that these strikes are going to go ahead.
And it's going to be the first of a lot of this type of skirmishes, which is going to lead to strikes or stoppages, which means that thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are going to be discommoded. Just very quickly, Kevin, I want to go to you on, we've got checkers happening this weekend. Theresa May is going to try and get her rebels into line, and there's long odds on that. And also, we see pronouncements from the Austrian Prime Minister and Wolfgang Schäuble, the former German finance minister. Are the first cracks in EU solidarity with Ireland over Brexit, are they beginning to show?
I think there's some worry that, from what the Austrian Prime Minister said, or Chancellor said, that he wasn't as definitive as everybody has been up to this point, that there'll be no deal without Ireland and Ireland has to be done. He's in Dublin on Sunday, so that'll be quite interesting to see the dynamic there with the Taoiseach. On the checkers side of things, the Irish officials talked to a lot of them last night, very hopeful that that Theresa May is actually going to stand up to these guys this time round, and there will be something on the table. Not enough, but something that could be a starting point for the talks. But it's going to be a long day while they watch, because in checkers there's no mobile phone coverage, you can't get emails out. So until those boys leave at maybe 11 or midnight tonight, we won't know what's going on.
OK, thank you both very much indeed. Right, plenty more to come on the programme. We'll be back after this short break.